Good evening. Welcome. I'd like to everyone to this regular meeting of the Seminole Valley Unified School District Board of Education. Today is Tuesday, April 19th. Please rise with us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, thank you for being with us this evening. I'd like to start by introducing our board members. First, our student board member, Ron Batra,
Good evening.
board trustee, Susanna Ordway,
Hi, everyone.
board trustee, Shelby Clark,
Good evening, everybody.
our board clerk, Laura Bratt,
Good evening.
vice president. It's on the tip of my tongue. though.
Rachel Hurd.
Rachel Hurd.
Good evening,
This
everyone.
happens to me sometimes. And Ken Mintz, president of the board. Remembered my name at least. Sorry about that. Okay, report of actions taken at closed session. Prior to tonight's regular meeting, we had a closed session. Two items occurred. First, we had board approval, both unanimous, on new principals. The first is Bajoan Remmers, who will now be principal at Alamo Elementary School, and Lindsay Castellano, principal for alternative education. Both of them will start in July of this year. Item 7.0 is acceptance of minutes, and we have the minutes from March 29th. Any comments, questions, omissions, deletions, others? In that case, can I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Call out vote. Student Board Member Bacha.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next, item 8.0 is agenda approval and consent action. First is acceptance of the open session agenda. Can I have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Second. The motion was made by Board Member Ordway and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Call out vote. Student Board Member Bacha.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 8.2 is approval of consent agenda. For those in the audience, our consent agenda is made up of items that are considered routine in nature, and as such, we handle with a single vote. However, if there's anything that needs to be pulled and handled separately with further discussion, we would do that at this point. Are there any items that staff wishes to pull from consent? Anything from the board? I don't see anything from the public. In that case, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Bratt and seconded by Board Member Clark. Call out vote. Student Board Member Bacha.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We have a number of reports to the board next. Item 9.1 is strategic directions, leadership development, student voice. And I believe, were you going to introduce?
Sure. Thank you, President Mintz. I'm going to invite up our Director of Equity, Hong Yuan, and our Executive Director of Secondary, John Campopiano.
Good evening, board members, superintendent, assistant superintendent, CBO, students, staff, and community members. My name is Hong Nguyen, and I'm the Director of Education Equity. I will be presenting on leadership development, student voice, alongside our Executive Director of Secondary, John Campopiano. Last spring, we approved our strategic directions. Built on a foundation of academic excellence, we are broadening our definition of success. We are dedicated to academic excellence, where all students thrive and succeed in innovative and inclusive environments, and we do mean that. Our strategic directions consist of equity, social emotional well-being, deep learning and innovation, shared leadership, stewardship of resources, and culture of responsiveness. Through an intersection of our strategic directions of culture of responsiveness and shared leadership, we learn from student voice, and student voice is super important. So tonight, I'm excited to have student representatives from Student Senate, GSA, BSU, Student Leadership, Ethnic Studies, and Restorative Justice to share their successes and next steps in building inclusive school environments and climates that celebrate differences across SRVUSD schools.
Thank you, trustees and Dr. Malloy. This is going to be a great night. Can we give all of our students that are here tonight and students district-wide a round of applause? This is an absolute treat, and we have some incredible students with us tonight, and you're going to love this. And so thank you, students, for being here. We're going to start with Student Senate, an update about Student Senate. First time we've ever had this, and we're going to turn it over from Monte Vista, Risha.
Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Risha Jain from Monte Vista High School, and I am the chair of the SRVUSD Student Senate. So a little bit about the SRVUSD Student Senate. It serves as a platform of student agency to bolster the student body, give voice to their concerns, and create change alongside the district. It was founded in 2020, so this is officially our second year serving. So the Student Senate has been working on several initiatives through our 4 subcommittees, them being student voice, mental health, social equity, and the in-person school subcommittee. So these committees were decided on based upon our district-wide survey that asked students what they thought they considered the most important issues that they felt went unaddressed. So every single student senator is a part of one of our 4 subcommittees, and they've all contributed greatly to our collective progress. So the role of the student senators is to represent their schools, gather feedback from their respective student body, discuss the feedback, and use it to guide our initiatives. Additionally, they also communicate with their principals, school staff, and their student body to share updates of the progress we are making and to collaborate with them further on our efforts. So diving directly into our 4 subcommittees, first we have the Student Voice Subcommittee, which is focused on bringing a student onto our Contra Costa Board of Education, as well as expanding our participatory budgeting trial. We had our first trial run this year at California High School, and it was a great success. Second, we have our Mental Health Subcommittee, which has been promoting awareness of the resources we have on campus and is currently working on a fishbowl discussion at Monte Vista High School. Our third subcommittee is the in-person subcommittee, which focused on creating a video to explain what Schoology is and how to use the platform. After shift from School Loop to Schoology, many of our students were confused, and these videos served as a way to answer all their questions. Finally, our fourth subcommittee, the Social Equity Subcommittee, focused on 2 projects, namely a district-wide art contest meant to promote inclusivity and an anti-bullying video campaign focused on addressing modern forms of bullying, including telltale signs of damaging relationships and ways to address bullying. I want to thank all of the student senators for their hard work and their diligence, and I would also like to thank the district for supporting us. Thank you.
Thank you, Risha. And this started from a student idea. This was Risha reaching out to our coordinator of equity, Ashley Gutierrez, meeting with our principal. This was a student idea that has turned into this. It's incredible. And they meet twice a month, and they're so committed to this district. Thank you, Risha. Next, sharing about our GSA and San Ramon Valley Unified School District from Doherty Valley, Alex.
Hi, thank you for welcoming me back. So first off, on a district level, GSA has managed to expand the use of the gender support plan, which is seen starkly through student feedback from 2020 versus 2022, in which a lot more students have understood the access and the use of such a support program. Furthermore, we continue to campaign for more gender neutral bathrooms, namely to increase the amount that we have in schools to make them less of a and finding spaces for in high schools for gender neutral locker rooms, which seems to be a case by case basis. Furthermore, at Doherty Valley, most notably, we've had the teacher LGBT education workshop this year, which we test run. The education itself was completely curated by student feedback and by the officers of the DVHS GSA. It explains basic terminology, expands on gender identity versus expression. It teaches teachers etiquette in order to avoid quote unquote outing students. It illustrates the challenges faced by LGBT students, encourages teachers and gives them advice for being inclusive and mindful of asking for pronouns, taking the opportunity to expand on LGBT topics in class in order to normalize these topics. Furthermore, we have been successful in surveying the architecture in Doherty Valley to start construction on a gender-neutral locker room. Our goals for next year include collaborating with Student Senate, which I've had a great opportunity to talk to Risha earlier. And we want to see other students outside of GSA's opinions on gender neutral bathrooms to make further suggestions to the board during GSA forums. We want to open a line of communication between administration and the officers of GSA from every school in order to create milestones and progress checks once policies have been passed and a committee has been established to implement these policies. And furthermore, we would like to continue gender neutral locker room walkthroughs and planning to expand the inclusivity of schools. Thank you for your time and for supporting our GSA officers.
Thank you, Alex, very much. And I just wanted to special acknowledgement all the adults in our district that have been allies. And I'd like to point out Mr. Levesque at Charlotte Wood Middle School. He's here in the middle of this picture in the corner, and he is retiring this year, and his strength has really moved the work of our school district. So if we could give Mr. Levesque a round of applause. I know he's watching. Thank you, Mr. Levesque. This is last week, Miss Nguyen and I were able to go to Doherty Valley High School. Thank you, Miss Decker and Miss Manley, for hosting us and these amazing students. We could have stayed there all day. The insight, the ideas was incredible. Representing some of those ideas from Doherty Valley High School is Julia.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Julia Makai Saeed. I am the president and founder of Black Union at Doherty Valley High School. For Black Student Union, it's essentially a club and family, a community that we build at Doherty Valley and other schools to just make sure our voices are heard and oftentimes to just bring us together. Right now, I would say that our main focus is making posters around the school and really making sure that as Black students, we feel welcome and we feel heard because oftentimes we don't feel like that. Right now, we are working on having an open mic night, getting some guest speakers, and we had we recently did have our guest speaker who was a activist, and it went really successfully. She's able to give us a new look on how we should move forward with life, and especially getting new scholarship opportunities. And we have recently had new spotlights for classes that we would like to have for the next upcoming students, such as Afrocentric, which is a class where you learn about Black history. We think that is very important. We would also, having improved with AP Lit classes, we are reading the book Beloved, which helps a lot and it brightens everybody's minds. And then we're also working on getting 12 Years a Slave being shown in all history classes for junior year. And it's very successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia, and all the students that we visited with here and at San Ramon High School earlier in the week. And we look forward to going to the other high schools in the next week to two. Representing student leadership, which is a very robust program throughout our district, is a student from San Ramon Valley High School, Jacqueline.
Good evening. My name is Jacqueline Guerrero. I'm a student at San Ramon Valley High School, and I will be talking to you all about the goals of our district's leadership programs at San Ramon Valley High, California High, Doherty Valley High, and Monte Vista High. Leadership classes have had a reputation for only putting on dances, preparing homecoming, and planning rallies. And while these events are vital to building community within our schools, day-to-day work in a leadership classroom strives to promote everyday community, safety, and connection. Over the past decade or so, The programs have included a handful of subcommittees that are designated to certain goals of the class, such as staff appreciation, student appreciation of scholars, athletes, the performing arts, and clubs, and awareness, to name a few. As a leadership student at SRV, I get to witness firsthand just how much work is put into making sure that every student is welcome, appreciated, and recognized directly, roughly 3 times a year, if not more. As a district, added events such as breaking down the walls and every 15 minutes, as well as awareness weeks, including Say Something, Start with Hello, and Red Ribbon Week, have allowed us to build safe school communities and impact our students by promoting awareness, compassion, spirit, and kindness. Leadership also works diligently to lift up our comrades, our special needs program students. As well, we acclimate our incoming freshmen to high school utilizing link crew groups, which helps them to get excited for school and hopefully helps them to feel accepted. Finally, in an attempt to create a connection between our schools and overall community, leadership provides community service through various drives and outreach programs to places like sister schools. Leadership programs in the past may have focused on spirit alone, but SRVUSD programs push forward with student recognition for academics, athletics, awards, and performing arts, making sure that every student feels like a part of their school to help students feel safe and be safe in a connected community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you all the leadership teachers throughout our district, their collaboration, working through last year and all of our exciting end of the year activities, and all the students that make our schools great places to be. Ethnic Studies, we're very excited about the courses we offered this year. Thank you for supporting these courses. Thank you to the teachers that are running it. We have one of them in the audience, Mr. Clemente from Doherty Valley High School. If we could give him a round of applause, that'd be great. And we're so proud of the work that's going on and what will continue to go on. And we really feel like we're leaders as a district in this work in the state of California and across the country. Tonight we have Sammy from Cal High School and Leslie from Doherty Valley High School to share, and we'll let Sammy go first.
Thank you for that warm introduction, and good evening to everyone. As you said, my name is Sammy Chipasuri, and I'm a junior at California High School. And this year, I had an honor to take part in my ethnic studies class. This was the first year that this has happened at my school, and it was an incredible experience. It was empowering. As an Indian American myself, I wasn't very aware about my own culture, let alone the cultures of other people. And being able to experience and understand and learn to a deeper level more about the people that I go to school with every day was very empowering, and it was important. In ethnic studies, we have learned about all different types of people's cultures. At the beginning of the year, we learned and focused more about Native Americans, and throughout the year, we have touched on many groups of people. As I mentioned before, I learned more about myself. I was able to kind of connect to myself and learn how I can impact my own community and how I can leave an impact on the communities around me just by learning and researching more about the people that I go to school with. Um, Along with that, ethnic studies is a new class, and one great improvement that I think could help it is by introducing more guest speakers. Guest speakers who have gone through the experiences that we learn about are crucial for us to really get a personal connection with the experiences that we're being taught. And hearing these personal narratives is crucial for us to really connect with all these different ideas that we learn about. As a district, we're aiming to diversify and create a more inclusive school community and culture. And to be able to do this, we need to first learn about the people that we see every single day and the things that they've been through, the traumas that they've been through, the history that they've been through, and all the things that they have contributed to what we see nowadays. And ethnic studies is definitely the building blocks and the first steps in this direction. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leslie Williams Jones, and I'm a senior at Doherty Valley High School. This is the first year ethnic studies has been introduced to our school, and I'm very grateful and very appreciative of this opportunity to take this class. Ethnic studies this year for me has been very eye-opening. I go to school with people every day that I do not talk to, and and within ethnic studies, I can learn about their cultures. Learning about their cultures for me is seeing their experiences living in San Ramon and their experiences living as that culture. Ethnic studies brings a community of people together to talk about their traumas and their experiences in order to come together as a family. A goal of ethnic studies is to try to empower people to make change in your district, even as little as your home. And ethnic study brings that empowerment to you within yourself. I have found myself this year more through my own ethnic culture. I am African American. I am also Filipino as well. So therefore, learning about those two cultures just through ethnic study has made me more empowered to try and go out and make more change. Making more change with ethnic studies brings more people together as a family. Family is a big thing that I take care of my own morals, and ethnic study has brought that in my life very much, and I'm very appreciative of that. Thank you.
I told you all this would be great, and I love hearing this. And our Restorative Justice Club, this is incredible. Again, students leading the work, and we can learn so much from our students. From California High School, Haley and Yukta, Restorative Justice.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Haley,
And I'm Yukta.
and we are the president and vice president of the Cal Restorative Justice Coalition.
We created the Cal Restorative Justice Coalition just this past year with the inspiration from our Justice and Community English class.
The goal of our club is to implement restorative justice practices into our school, California High School, and eventually reach the greater San Ramon community. Currently, our project that we're working on is a text set that is specific to the N-word. We have resources that we've compiled as a club on the meanings, the history, and also where we see the N-word in today's culture and society. And we hope to give this out to offenders and misusers of the N-word so that they can learn and really understand the true meaning and intentions behind the word and help become better people themselves and heal the community that they've harmed.
We recognize that the district and our own school have started taking actions toward implementing restorative justice practices, but we wanted to create a club about implementing restorative justice into our community based solely on the students' voices. We hope that in the future, our detailed text sets become available to all students and staff, and they're going to be available both digitally and physically.
So back to the text set, currently we have 7 sections, and all of them are followed up with a question for them to reflect over and see if they've really understood the section they've gone over. But to us, the most important section we've included is the activity section, where the offender will choose one of multiple activities to complete to show their understanding. And those activities are meant for the person to reflect on themselves and their actions and also involve them in the community around them.
Some examples of self-reflection activities in Section 6 are meeting with the counselor to discuss your actions or completing a psychosocialization activity. The community involvement activities include volunteering in your community or meeting with the victim if there's one present and willing.
In the future, we plan to make similar text sets, but on different topics such as cyberbullying, vandalism, even homophobia.
We really hope that our work as students in making these hyperdocs and text sets and implementing restorative justice into our community brings positive change into our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's hard to follow students, and just wanted to bring up a few things before we open it up if there's any questions. We believe in strategic direction, shared leadership, giving students opportunities to share their voice. And we use this intentionally, elevate student voice. We can learn through board presentations like this, community engagement, being part of our steering committee. One of the things we just started was the Instagram page where students can communicate what is going on. We learn from our students, and we will make better decisions the more we listen to our students. Additionally, we really want to have this student-centered approach. This is a good time for us to embarrass Mr. Batra here, Trustee Batra. Let's give him a round of applause. He is our first student. You gotta do a smile. All right, there we go. Our first student trustee, and so proud of our district for taking that step. And then building the student senate that you heard earlier from Risha. And this one is important, is making the voice present in the decision. Yesterday, my colleague shared at Student Senate some of the equity work and data that is in our district. And this morning, she said, I wish I would have spoken to the students at the beginning of the year because their insights and ideas were so great. And that's the model that we're moving for. So we're just thrilled. Thank you for taking the time. Again, shared leadership. We really want to create these opportunities for them to share their voice and experience. This was a small sample, tonight of our 30,000 students. And thank you so much again, all of you, for coming. And just want to, let's give them another round of applause and then see if there's any questions.
Thank you to our students. Thank you to our cabinet team and board members. I just wanted to share one other important one of the other discussions we've been having throughout the district in the last 6 weeks, even though I think everyone knows and understands that our commitment is our students. But we're asking one very significant question everywhere we go, which is, how do we know we are student-centered? What evidence do we have that we are student-centered? I'm guessing as I say that, everyone would say, well, of course we're student-centered or we wouldn't be here. But what we're doing is taking it to the next level, not only being inspired and educated and challenged by our students while we support you to the best of our ability, but also to challenge ourselves. Is every decision, practice, process starting with our students front and center? And I know that sounds like a simple question, but what I said to our principals this week is, in every conversation you have and in every conversation you invite your community to have, can we keep this question front and center and come back to it throughout our meetings, throughout our experiences? And if we don't have the ability to answer that question in any space or at any time, let's figure out why that's the case and do something about it. So I wanted to add that piece as well as another dimension where the work you're hearing and the great voices of our students that were in our room tonight, we also know that we're grateful that you came to us in this space, but we also know how powerful and important it is for us to be with you in the spaces where you're most comfortable and where you can share that experience in ways that will transform, not just for today, but for many students to come in the future. So I wanted to add that piece as well.
Thank you, Dr. Malloy. Board members, comments or questions?
I just say I am so happy there's so many students in this boardroom. I mean, usually we don't. Thank you, students, for coming. I know usually, you have homework or, activities, lots of other things that you just can't make it. But I just want to say I am so happy that, and to hear all of your engagement, your leadership, and I'm blown away from your reflections of, for yourself and others. So thank you.
I just want to say that as a trustee, your voice is vital to me in my ability to make good decisions. So to see you all here tonight and for all of you to be so articulate and so well versed in what you're doing and bringing that to us is, I can't tell you what that means to me. Really, it's amazing. It's something that I've wanted to see in this district for a long time. And I feel very fortunate to be sitting here and experiencing this tonight with all of you. So thank you so much. And I look forward to working with all of you and supporting you in every way that I can as a trustee so that we can continue this work together. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I also want to say thank you. All of your voices and the voices that you represent are so important to us and for the in the decisions that we make, and really understanding the experiences that you have so that we can make the decisions that affect you. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I do have a question, and I'm just curious, and anyone could answer, or John or Hong, but how do the affinity groups, the student groups liaise with Student Senate to ensure that the voices are then amplified and come to us?
That's a wonderful question. So we have a couple ways that we do that. So we actually have newsletters that we send out, and our student senators are focused on communicating with their student body. So actually, we receive tons of emails from student agencies across the district who are excited to collaborate with us, and we fit them into our schedule. And if you look at our meetings, we have a page on the the district website. If you just search up Student Senate, you'll find it. And if you look there, you can see all of our meetings and the minutes on them too. And you can see all of the wonderful people that we've had the honor to spend our time with to discuss matters with. So they can reach out to us through the district website, or they can reach out to their fellow student senators and pretty much anyone really to just facilitate that conversation. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for being here.
I also want to say thank you. It's so great to see so many of your faces in this room all at one time. So many times we hear from a group of students about one particular thing. And what was so special about tonight was hearing about so many facets and how they complement each other and intersect with each other. And I'm just so pleased. And I have to thank the students, but also the staff for finally systematizing this. The creation of the Student Senate and the seat at the boardroom that Ronit sits in and others will follow is just so important for bringing what we've wanted to do for years forward into something that really is sustainable and is an opportunity to, I love your word, amplify voices of all of the different needs of different students. So thank you all for being a part of this groundbreaking work because I think it's going to last. Thank you.
Yeah, just to follow up on Ms. Hurd's comments. You know, for years we've had student input. We've had student representatives from each of the high schools, from Venture, from Delamigo. Student would come into our meeting, give a presentation about what was happening on their campus, maybe check in with the other schools, and we'd hear about the dances, kind of like was mentioned earlier with leadership and some of the programs that have been done over time. What was different tonight was hearing from student leaders, students who have taken a step, not just, you know, as Ms. Hurd said, you know, we've heard from students on individual issues over the years, but here you're creating a foundation for your fellow students today and tomorrow. I recently read an article about Gen Zers, and the bottom line of the article was, we're going to be okay. And hearing from all of you tonight, that's how I'm feeling about us as a school district and as a community. You know, you are the leaders of tomorrow, but in your own way, you're the leaders of today. You know, you're creating, like I say, that foundation on various levels to what it is to make sure that those of us who are in a decision-making position have the input to make good decisions. But it goes beyond that because it's not just about you coming here to the board, and I'm very grateful for your presence tonight, but it's what you're doing back at your individual school sites and also between your school sites, which is also something that we really haven't seen a whole lot of in the past. And so that coordination, that working together between not just in silos, but again, as just questioned, you know, working together through different affinity groups and different leadership groups is just amazing to me. I also, as John pointed out, want to thank, I do on a regular basis, but Ronit has been an excellent contributor to our board and another foundation block for the student voice in our district that I'm hoping once again to see as the beginning, not the end, just to have you here this evening. So again, thank you all so very, very much for your presence this evening, but absolutely for your participation back on your school campuses and making them what they are today. So thank you all very much for coming this evening. And please feel free to stay for the rest of our meeting, but we understand that you have other commitments.
All right, just one more round of applause for all of our student leaders tonight. And they made that commitment to come out here and be part of our board meeting, and we just appreciate them so much. Before they go, though, we would like a picture. So if anybody wanted to be in that picture, we'll do one right here. All right.
How about all of you get into the picture?
Yeah, all the students. Come on up. Thank you all.
And it's Rachel. Yeah, you'll be old someday too. Okay, moving on. Moving on with our agenda, item 9.2 is our pilot of elementary phonics and social studies instructional materials in a presentation. And I'd like to call Deb Pettish.
Good evening, trustees, Superintendent Malloy, and distinguished cabinet members. I did not know I was following the students tonight. So that is going to be a very, very hard act to follow. So kudos to the students, especially those who stayed. And then also to John Campo and Hong. That was an exceptional presentation. So, but we will do our best to follow that. So essentially, I am very excited to be here tonight, not only to hear about all of that wonderful work going on in terms of student voice, but also to share with you our recommendations for curriculum material adoption in the areas of elementary phonics and elementary social studies. And I also want to highlight some of the processes we used in order to arrive at those decisions. So as you know, our strategic directions drive all of the work that we do. So in particular, for our pilot process this year, two of the directions have been especially important. So the first one is probably fairly evident, deep learning and innovation. So having strong curricula that supports our amazing staff, as you see here tonight, in engaging students in deep learning experiences is really, really vital to the work that we do. So when we're analyzing curriculum, we also, of course, it's very important to do so through that deep learning lens in order to really engage students in the deep learning experiences, which is so critical. And then another important direction that really drove a lot of this work is this idea of shared leadership. And so many of the individuals who really essentially led the pilot processes this year are here tonight. And I'm so excited because they have worked so hard all year in order to work alongside our staff to really support them in implementing these curricula that they're not familiar with. It's brand new, right? They've worked so incredibly hard. So there's two behind me that I'm going to introduce in a minute that will be speaking. And then there's also several other in the audience that I really want to highlight because it's just been amazing. And hopefully it's also honed some of their leadership abilities as well. So again, we did two pilots this year, one in elementary phonics, K2, and then another in elementary social studies for grades K5. So elementary phonics, as you all know, is really integral to students understanding how to read. So they really have to be able to have those foundational skills before they can really comprehend what they're learning in the upper grades, grades 4, 5, middle school, of course, high school. And both of the programs that we piloted are based in the science of reading. And Deanna will be talking a little bit more about that in a few minutes. And then we also piloted materials in the area of elementary social studies. So there's a new instructional framework introduced in 2016, but it's important to highlight that the instructional framework is not the instructional standards. So the instructional standards and social studies have been around for years and years. But in 2016, they did introduce a new framework, which is essentially the state of California, I guess, supporting school districts in really understanding how to most effectively teach elementary social studies. So, of course, there's more of an emphasis, and Courtney will talk a little bit more about this, but there's more of an emphasis on student engagement as opposed to sheer memorization of facts and dates and names and all of those things that maybe some of us did in our high school social studies classes. So, just quickly to give you some context, we started this work over a year ago. So, we worked with the leadership team. We looked at many, many different curricula through the lens of these rubrics or frameworks. We finally decided to pilot 2 in phonics and then 2 in social studies. We did a parent preview in 2021, and then teachers have spent the entire year piloting the materials. We felt that was really, really important to really give them a feel for what it, is like at the beginning of the year, throughout the school year, and then until the end of the year. Tonight, of course, we're here to provide you with a preview, and then ideally coming back May 3rd for board adoption. So now, in order to talk a little bit more about elementary phonics, is Deanna Zapia, our ELA coordinator. So I'll turn over to her.
Good evening, Superintendent Malloy, President Mintz, and distinguished board members. Sorry. My name is Deanna Zapia, and I am the ELA ELD coordinator for the district. And I am so excited to be here tonight to bring you the recommendation for our phonics curriculum that we have just worked so hard on for the last couple of years. As you know, sorry, I'm going to have to do that. As you know, phonics instruction is crucial because it develops the brain's orthographic processing system, bringing letters, sounds, meaning, and context together. After reviewing 9 phonics programs in the 2020-2021 school year, our literacy team decided to pilot CKLA skills and 95% phonics. Both programs are grounded in the science of reading and research. Maintaining consistent instruction and following one scope and sequence was important to our teachers. So to maintain this consistency, our teachers piloted one or the other program for the entire year. They did not switch the pilot programs. All teachers during the year were invited to participate in monthly collaboration meetings. They were able to engage in meaningful conversations about reading instruction and best practice. They participated in professional learning based in the science of reading. They spent tireless many hours evaluating and looking at data, student data from FastBridge and ESGI. And they spent a lot of time evaluating each program. And they were really looking at the concept or the components of each program, looking at phonics instruction, the instruction of phonological awareness, word analysis, print concepts, equity, and acceleration. Learning to read is not a natural process, rather a process that requires the explicit and systematic instruction, phonics, and phonemic awareness. The reading rope, as you can see on the screen, represents how the many skills necessary to become a proficient reader are woven together as the reading brain develops. Our pilot teachers applied their understanding of how we learn to read to find a consistent phonics program for all kindergarten through 2nd grade teachers across the district. Data collected from our student screeners, FastBridge and ESGI, along with teacher evaluations of each program, guided our recommendation process. We collected a lot of data, but tonight I want to highlight some of the data that really pertains to our deep learning and equity strategic directions. So the data that you see really shows each program and the teacher evaluation of each program in autonomy, providing student choice in the program was very important to our teachers, making sure that our instruction was meaningful, instruction was interactive, and a couple of really key important parts were to make sure that the curriculum that we chose provided teachers who offer, got dry mouth, sorry, that differentiated instruction for students either in small groups or one-to-one. And then the last two bars on the graph show the results from teacher evaluation, looking at how many options were available for our teachers to adjust teaching or instruction based on specific skill level. I'm going to take a sorry. Something about nerves does that to me. So our teachers really felt that it was important to choose a program that was not only strong in all of the academic concepts and components of teaching reading, but they really wanted to make sure that they chose a program and brought the recommendation to the board, a program that was engaging and equitable to all of our students across the district. So after careful consideration and a lot of conversations that were just rich conversations, our teachers completed a final evaluation and recommendation form. And they were asked to rate both programs based on a 1 to 5 rating, 5 being absolutely, I want to have this program, and 1 being, I can't live with this program in my classroom. And our CKLA teachers, the CKLA is the program that received the highest recommendation. So there are many highlights that I could share with you about CKLA. It's a wonderful program. It is interactive, but I wanted to just share a few of the key highlights from the program. CKLA is the very first program to earn an all green rating from Ed Reports, which is very, very important. That means that it meets all of the requirements and will help teachers meet and teach all of those standards. CKLA has very interactive online tools for teachers and students. And one of the very favorite parts of CKLA is that it has diverse and engaging decodable texts, so that as students are learning in the classroom, they are able to practice and apply their learning through decodable readers. And the readers are truly engaging and colorful and full of great resource. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to share the recommendation to adopt CKLA skills for our K2 phonics program moving forward. And I'm going to turn it over to Courtney, where she is going to share all about our social studies.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, trustees. My name is Courtney Konopaki. I'm the MTSS liaison at Stone Valley Middle School, and I wanted to share with you the elementary component of our pilot this year. So we were lucky enough to have almost about 80 teachers at districts or at schools all across the district pilot in our program this year. We chose 2 programs for them to pilot. One was from Savas, and it was called My World. And then one was from Teacher Created Materials, or TCM, you'll see that abbreviation, and that was called Exploring Social Studies California. We really focused, Debbie touched on this a little bit, but using the California History Social Studies framework as a lens, both in terms of the professional development teachers needed and as a evaluative tool for teachers looking at the 2 programs. That being the case, professional development was an integral part of the piloting process since the framework is new to elementary teachers in our district. We gathered both quantitative and qualitative data to evaluate the 2 programs, and I'm going to share some of that with you as well. So just a really brief to touch on the framework, just to give you a little bit more insight as to what it covers. There's really 4 pillars of the framework, and like Debbie said, it's not a shift in what we're teaching, but more importantly, how we're teaching it. And the CLICK acronym is an easy way that I remember it. So content just basically means diversifying the content and perspectives we're presenting to students through history and social studies. Literacy is having discipline-specific instruction in writing, reading, and speaking in the field of social studies. Inquiry is the really fun one, I think, because it really is shifting away from just rote memorization, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't like history or in their past didn't necessarily like their history classes, and encouraging students to take open-ended or answer open-ended questions with evidence-supported opinions. And then citizenship is really that push to have a robust civics education from K through 12 for students in our district and throughout California. So when it was all said and done, we had the teachers, after each round of the piloting, fill out a really comprehensive rubric using the framework as a lens to evaluate the materials, and then at the end, a comparative evaluative tool asking them which one did a better job of meeting those standards of the framework. So the data for this is fairly overwhelming. If you see red, it means TCM, and blue is Salvis. In both content and literacy, teachers were overwhelmingly feeling that TCM was the stronger program to accomplish or to meet those two pillars of the framework. Inquiry and civics also were predominantly overwhelmingly for TCM. And then we also asked for student feedback that we have both in narrative form and then also a question for teachers. Which program did your students seem more engaged with and got more positive feedback from students? And that was overwhelming for TCM as well. So it made the decision fairly easy for us in that it seemed to be an obvious choice for our teachers who piloted, which was nice. I included some quotes on here just because it was really fun to hear from the student perspective what their feedback was, and the reasons why they like it is fun to read as well. So not only is a TCM program, it's really not a traditional textbook, which is nice in many ways. So the kids liked the size of it, but I think really the different activities and the ways kids got engaged. The second quote touches on a teacher speaking of how empowered an EL student she had felt in learning from the materials. And to really grasp and understand what she was reading was nice to hear as well. So lots of fun student feedback to read through, all basically saying the same thing, that they really enjoyed and felt excited for the first time, many of them said, for learning for when it was social studies time in their classroom, which was really fun for me to hear. So our recommendation is the TCM program. I think it'll be really strengthen our elementary social studies curriculum across the board. And as a middle school social studies person, it'll be fun to see in a couple years kind of the payoff of that more enriching social studies curriculum for our students in K through 5. So that would be our recommendation. And I want to thank all the teachers that participated and thank Debbie for giving me the opportunity to participate in this process as well. Thanks.
So we will be having an opportunity for the community to come and preview the materials. All of this information, in addition to being in this presentation, will also be on our website tomorrow morning. But essentially, individuals will be able to come and preview the phonics and or the social studies materials between April 20th and May 3rd. And it will be they'll have to sign up through a sign up genius, because we'll have anyone who wants to preview can preview, but we're going to have to space it out just due to space constraints in our buildings. It will be at the district office here, building C in the back. And again, you can either use the bit.ly at the top or that QR code to go to the sign up genius in order to access the time slots. And then this, going into pilot process, it's a tremendous amount of work. The teachers have to really learn brand new curricula, and they really don't have enough time. So teachers who took this on, I just want to give them huge kudos. They worked extremely hard on understanding these materials and really doing what was best for their students. I also wanted to give a huge shout out to our leads too. You heard from Deanna. There was also Joe Romagna, and then Bill Alpert and Donna Grimm are here. Can you two stand up, please? Yeah. And then our pilot leads in social studies. Again, you heard from Courtney. Annabelle, unfortunately, is not feeling well, so she couldn't be here. But then we also have Allie DeBrule, who is in the back. Allie. And then Alice Tumulty. And so I really, without these individuals, it would not have been possible. So thank you.
I want to thank all of you for the hard work over the last couple of years and bring these things forward. I'll start off with one question. Deb, can you give us a sense of timeline for, clearly there's a lot of PD that's involved, a collection of, instructional materials. So what kind of time frame are we looking at, assuming approval at our next meeting?
Thank you, President Mintz. So assuming approval at the May 3rd meeting, we were hoping possibly to bring the contracts to that meeting as well, because we have heard from our teachers that it's extremely important that they have the teachers' additions for these materials before they leave for summer. So the sooner, see, we heard them, we heard them. And I get it, right? And so that is going to be really, really important. So the sooner that we can kind of get the ball rolling, the better chance there's going to be that we can get them those teachers' additions before they leave. And then our number one highest priorities next year will be the professional development that is focused on the implementation of these two curricula. And then over the next, 6 weeks we have left of school, we are going to be doing some professional development with teachers, some like embedded in the school day, some additional that would of course will be optional if people are really feeling that they need to kind of like get their hands on the materials to dig in. So what we've heard from teachers is it's really important for them to kind of even understand the physical materials they're getting, because for both programs there's lots of stuff, right? And so how are they going to organize those things? So that some of the logistical stuff, in addition to really the foundational underpinnings of these curricula. What is the science of reading? Why are we using the science of reading, right? Why is that guiding us? What does the history social studies framework say about how we should be teaching history social studies, right? So those types of things.
Great, thank you very much. Board members, other questions or comments? Shelley?
How long has it been since how far back was it that last time that we had new curriculum for either one of these programs?
So I don't think.
I asked a funny question.
So for phonics, we have really left it up to the individual elementary school to choose which phonics materials they felt were most appropriate for their students. As we expand, and that was, I think, probably okay in the beginning, before, well before my time in the district. But we really were seeing a very strong need to have consistent phonics program across all the 22 elementary schools and across the K2 grade levels, so that students, it makes a really big difference with regard to scope and sequence to ensure that students are really obtaining all of the skills that they need to be obtaining. And honestly, I think there's been some shifts with regard to best practice in how we teach reading and phonics, and so the science of reading have become very prominent in the literature with regard to being really the best practice for how to teach kids how to read.
And is it the same case with social studies?
Social studies, I believe, was around it's been a long time, maybe 2005.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Oh, go ahead, Rachel.
Deanna, I don't want to put you on the spot, so if you don't have this data, I would just like it later. But I'm curious if, as you were digging into the FastBridge data, if you were noticing not only a difference in improvement or attainment of skills between the classes that were using each of the two piloted programs, but kind of compared to our standard of business as usual.
I actually do have that information. So when we were digging into the FastBridge data in particular, we really focused on the key components of FastBridge. So we didn't look at the full score, but we broke down student progress in high frequency words, nonsense words, decoding. And nonsense words was probably one of the standout components that we saw a huge difference in our kids, because knowing and having good understanding of letter sound correspondence and being able to break down a word that does not even look like a normal word, does not sound like a normal word, is a nonsense word. And we saw really huge growth in that area as far as our FastBridge data. And we actually saw growth, in all honesty, in both programs with our data. We just having explicit instruction in our classrooms made a huge difference, right, for student growth.
Yeah,
Does that-
I
does
was
that
I was
answer, Rachel?
mostly interested in, did
Yeah.
we do the comparison to the non-pilot programs
Yes.
versus the other? And sounds like the results were what you would expect them to be. So,
Right.
thank you.
Great. Again, thank you all so very much for being here this evening and presenting. And we're really looking forward to the continued implementation in these areas. Item 9.3 is just a presentation of Asian Pacific Heritage Month, which is in May, Hung Nguyen. And for the audience, when we speak about recognition and resolutions on different months and things, at the beginning of the school year, the Board of Education reviewed a number of resolutions, approved those at that time. And then we've asked staff to come in just prior to those periods to let us know a little bit more about what our plans and implementation look like.
Thank you, board members, superintendent, assistant superintendent, CBO, students that we still have in the audience, staff and community members. My name is Hong Nguyen. I'm the Director of Education Equity. I am delighted tonight to present our resolution on Asian Pacific Heritage Month, and this is for the month of May. And so our Asian Pacific Heritage Month is also known as you can see from the slide here, our Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. It's also known as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month and Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And so it's all of these different things because it is a huge umbrella. The idea of designating a month to recognize Asian Pacific Americans stemmed in 1976. In 1990, George H.W. Bush signed a bill passed by Congress to extend Asian American Heritage Week to a month. It started off with 10 days. Now it is a month. On May 14th, 1991, a public law was passed proclaiming May 1991 and May 1992 as Asian and Pacific American Heritage Month. By 1992, May was officially designated as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Our resolution that we actually have support our Asian Pacific Heritage Month. The state of California has over 600,000 AAPI students in grades TK through 12. We recognize that these students reflect the diversity of culture and heritage of many countries of Asia and the Pacific Islands. We encourage our district to celebrate AAPI in May and beyond the month of May. And we know that that's really important. Did you know that AAPI encompasses a minimum of 50 ethnicities? And there's so much more than that. And then also in terms of languages, over 200 languages as well as dialects. AAPI is made up of a large number of communities with many unique experiences. During the pandemic last year, the hate crimes against AAPI members increased. On March 19th, 2021, our school district sent out a communication in support of the AAPI community. We in the SRVUSD stand together in solidarity with all people of Asian American Pacific Islander descent and condemn these acts of hatred, and that's just part of an excerpt from that letter. This picture shows a sign stating Stop Asian Hate and San Ramon is for all people. To promote diversity and inclusion in schools as well as homes, books such as these are great for our students to be read too. We have Drawn Together up there, The Name Jar, all of these different books bring in more diversity as well as inclusion. A number of resources are also available online to support our AAPI communities and to educate folks on Asian Pacific Heritage Month. And in closing, I would like to read a quote from Amy Tan, an author. If you can't change your fate, change your attitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Hong. Any comments, board members? Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 9.4, we have Mental Health Awareness Month, also in May, and we have Jessica. and others.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm actually just up here to do a brief introduction and then turn it over to my co-presenters tonight. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and as we know, we've been working on that as one of the strategic directions. I want to offer up this quote first that says, emotional processes are structurally and functionally intertwined with and often the same as the cognitive capacities required for learning. And I really do think that this encapsulates what we're trying to do and how our three main strategic directions of deep learning, equity, and social emotional well-being are all tied together. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues, Kate Nolda, the Assistant Director of Special Education, and Christina Byers, who is one of our brand new school counselors at the elementary level this year, formerly a counselor at Monte Vista High School, so a longtime SRVUSD colleague, to talk about the various facets of mental health awareness. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. I want to introduce a concept to you all called the hand model, which really helps us understand what happens when our emotions overwhelm our ability to think, reason, use logic. So if everybody can just take their hand, and you're going to put your thumb in the middle, and you're going to flip your fingers down. So this is what it looks like when you have a functioning brain, where you're inside of your brain, that emotional cortex, or what we sometimes will call the caveman brain, is there, and then you have your prefrontal cortex, that's your thinking and reasoning skills. So those two things are working in tandem and are working really well to kind of regulate your sense of well-being and emotional functioning. However, when people are experiencing high intense feelings of emotion, whether that is anger, sadness, excitement, or frustration, anxiety, oftentimes what happens is we flip our lid. So that means that our emotions take over, and we've lost really the ability to think, reason, use the logic, and be available for learning. So what we're really trying to do is support our students in their ability to learn how to regulate and support themselves so that they're available for learning when and if those emotions start to take over. And we really want to make sure that they are available. And that's one of the reasons why it's so integral that we are supporting our students' emotional well-being right along with providing them access to those deeper learning opportunities, because we need them available for those opportunities as we go forward. And then I'm going to pass it over so she can talk about what we're doing to make sure that our students' lids are fully
Got it. Exactly. So some of the themes, again, I'm Christina Byers, school counselor here previously, Jessica mentioned, at Monte Vista High School for about 13 years. And then now I transitioned to be an elementary counselor at Rancho Romero and Alamo schools. And unfortunately, some of the themes that we've seen with students in our district are depression, of course, anxiety, languishing, right? Not just with the pandemic, but prior to that, right? In the 13 years at Monte Vista, saw a dramatic increase, particularly in anxiety, I would say. So with students with depression, though, too, that is an unfortunate area. We see students struggling too with depression. They sometimes will have that lack of interest in their regular activities that they're doing. They'll start to maybe socially withdraw from their family activities they prior really loved and enjoyed, and they have that sense of worthlessness. Some people unfortunately self-harm, and we do have seen that over the years with students that are an increase in that area. And when it comes to anxiety, again, I would say anxiety is the one theme that in my TK through 12 experience, that's been the predominant pervasive theme that has really ramped up. And with students with anxiety, right, they just have that sense of tension, worried thoughts. Students might be experiencing regular panic attacks. They just have this unstable kind of tension in themselves, this debilitating stress. Some people might experience an increase in blood pressure. Something also that we're seeing, this doesn't quite meet that clinical threshold of depression, but languishing is that sense of, stagnation and emptiness. It might be this kind of persistent, consecutive, joyless days people might be experiencing. They don't quite have that hopelessness and self-harm like depression, but they're definitely affected, right? They're definitely affected in what they're doing. So it's important that we are supporting them, right, in all that they're going through. And it's always important when we have a particular situation like mental health. I think it's come to the forefront, I think, as we've seen athletic people, at the Olympics speaking about it, right? Simone Biles is talking about it, Michael Phelps. And it's really important that we take this opportunity to bring our own awareness to these different situations that are presenting themselves with our students. And when we talk about mental health statistics, 1 in 5 young people during the pandemic had a significant negative effect, right? In their mental health, of course, right? And this is another statistic. 31% had an increase in their, mental health emergency rooms. And I, in fact, a year ago, had 3 students when I was at Monte Vista in the springtime that were in that health crisis state, unfortunately. And again, we were seeing an increase in it. And then 1 in 10 young people under the age of 18 have a mental health condition following a COVID diagnosis. So a lot of times that could be anxiety, depression, it could be a sleep disorder that we're seeing in our students, which makes it hard to learn, right? And hard to function as a friend or as a family member, right? If you're really struggling. And things we're doing in our district to support our students. So at the elementary levels, as I mentioned, I've transitioned to that role now, and we have Harmony, social emotional learning. We're doing a new program called Zones of Regulation, which affiliates basically the movie. I read it down right. It's the movie Inside Out. It uses the characters from Inside Out. So it's a great program that really students can identify with and say, oh, yeah, I'm definitely in that anger area right now with this person. So they can start to see zones that affiliate with each different emotion they're feeling. And as we talked about elementary counselors, we share 2 sites, the elementary counselors. So again, I'm at Alamo Rancho Romero. We still have the Rainbow Room as support. That's kind of an initial level of support. And if they need additional support from there, they would see us as a counselor or even our skip intern from the Discovery Center. And then at the secondary level, the 6th through 12th grade, will continue. They have small groups and the SOS presentations, right, which is our suicide and depression awareness for students at the different grade levels. We've continued to have the school counselors and the support counselors. And then also going down to the bottom left, coordinating our efforts. So we have these tiered levels of support, as we talked about with our MTSS liaisons, counselors, and we have all sorts of layers of support now for students. And we're busy. We're definitely, I know at the elementary level, I know we're busy at the high school level, definitely, but at the elementary level, I have full codes at both my sites. And there's a lot of students who have needs, a lot of needs coming through, a lot of behavior issues that are coming through. And it's sometimes students who don't know how to identify their emotions, and they just sometimes will act out. And so we're really working on trying to help them identify what's happening and being able to regulate their emotions. That's been something that the teachers have let us know. They're really seeing a lot of behavior issues, a lot more than usual years because of coming back to school and all the new things that come with that. We have streamlined, referral processes, response to the SEL screeners that we've been doing. We're following up as counselors with students who are in need, seeing if they need ongoing support or whether it's just a one-time thing. And then with all the levels, right, we're still continuing to do classroom presentations, restorative circles with students, parent education, ongoing, right, crisis counseling as needed, coordinating accommodations with students who need it. So that could be informal accommodations or formal accommodations, depending upon what their needs. And then also, this is just a helpful resource that we like to give students and families as the situations present themselves. So we have, of course, the Contra Costa crisis line is a common one we'll give to students. We usually have a little card that we'll give the students if they need it, or in some of our presentations, or if we're having a conversation and it comes up. We've given those over the years. And then we have community resource text lines, suicide prevention, talk lines for students, trauma projects as well, NAMI resources too. So depending upon what the need is, we can make sure the families get the proper resources and support they need. All right.
Thank you, Christina. And then the theme for Mental Health Awareness Month this year is Together for Mental Health. And that is the end of our presentation. Are there any questions?
Any questions from board members?
Just kind of clarifying one because it's elementary, right? So the kids are younger and stuff. So I would think that you'd work with not only the children but also the parents on sometimes. I mean, depending on what their needs are.
Absolutely. So at the elementary, thank you. So yeah, at the high school level, a lot of the students could independently talk with you. Here's what's happening with my friends, or here's what's happening with my class, and here's where I'm struggling. And can I get your support with this or that? So they can be very self-guided and communicate their needs. But definitely at the elementary level, that's something we definitely have to do a lot more. Parent meetings, parent conversations, because we're only at school, a certain amount of the day. And sometimes the behaviors are not as, sometimes the behaviors just happen here and there at school, but a lot is happening at home or vice versa. Not as much at home and can be at school. So there definitely are a lot of parent conversations, books we're sharing, articles we're sharing, different things depending upon what the situation is to make sure that we're in collaboration, in communication, and making sure all the students are supported. If we need to have a student study team meeting, if they're struggling with social, emotional, and academic, and we really need the works, we'll go right into that. But if it's kind of first level, we'll start from there, depending on if it's just academic or just social, emotional. So definitely a lot of conversation, important conversations. Any other questions?
Well, Ryan, thank you all for being here this evening with us. The focus has been highlighting the Awareness Month. However, it's clear, this is a focus area for us all year long. It's an important aspect of creating a safe environment for our students because it's only then that, first off, creating an environment where they can learn. And when you're worrying about your own personal health, whether it's physical health or mental health, that's going to take away from that ability to really be able to focus on other things. So for those in the audience and listening online, this is a key component for our district going forward, is making sure that we've really focused on our kids' health in every way we can. So I want to thank you all for your attendance here tonight and look forward to hearing more going forward.
Thank you very much.
Item 9.5 is public comment for non-agendized items. This is the time on our agenda when we appreciate hearing from members of our community on items that are not on our agenda. The one thing about these items is because they are not agendized, the board cannot discuss them with you. We cannot take action on these items at this time because they need to be on the agenda for us to be able to actually move an item forward for even discussion. Are there any other cards besides the ones that I have in my hand at this point? Seeing none, we'll move forward with this agenda item. First name, Lisa Worth. And these comments will be limited to 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. My name's Lisa Worth. I'm a parent in the community. I have 2 children within the district, as well as I went through the district myself. First, I wanted to show my support for the LGBTQ community within our schools. I want to make sure that I come as often to show my support. After hearing the student voice speak tonight, I feel a little bit better about what's happening in our schools and how the students are supporting each other. I lay awake at night sometimes thinking that there's not enough support, but I'm a little bit happier tonight about that. I did want to talk a little bit about the Brown Act. I've done a little bit of reading on it as I've sat through some of these meetings, both at home online and here in person. And I do understand, and I know that I am freely speaking because of the Brown Act, and I'm grateful for it. But I'm asking President Mintz tonight to take into consideration, how do I ask politely? Curbing some of our comments when they are not sticking to agenda items, so that maybe our meetings aren't quite so long, that there are some things that I'm having to learn about speakers that are not necessary to learn when they are speaking to specific agenda items. They are not speaking to the agenda when I'm having to learn of their political party preference, things like that. It's one thing if they were to stand up here during the non-agenda time frame. At least with Mike Arata, I know he's homophobic, and that's what we stick to with him. But with other speakers, one in particular, she goes way off base many times throughout the evening, and it goes on and on. I'm just trying, as a parent, to get more parent involvement. And when the meetings are notoriously long, other parents tell me they're too tired. It's just, they don't have the time to put into it. So I'm trying to get the interest. And if we can tone some things down a little bit in that area, or maybe bring it around to what the agenda item is that's being addressed, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Lisa. Next speaker is Mike Arata.
On Friday, your students and teachers will conduct a day of silence. That's an event orchestrated originally by notorious homosexual activist Kevin Jennings in the early 90s to mark a silence supposedly still imposed by society on homosexuals. But SRV schools initiated their gay straight alliances 19 years ago after a secretive collaboration with Jennings' Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. Today, even your elementary school PRISM clubs shout homosexualism loudly. So, as I asked on March 29th, what other special interests and neuroses get to disrupt normal classroom activity here? Today, the trendy dysphoria du jour is the psychosis, that is, the flight from reality, of transgenderism, a delusion which declares insanely that men and boys can become women and girls, and vice versa, or that people can simply be non binary or gender fluid. SRV schools shamelessly cultivate and reinforce such fixations, even in the youngest grades. Instructional coach Corby Saunders, for example, with self declared pronouns they and them, has promoted a list of read aloud picture books with homosexual and transgender themes for little kids' story time. My sign shows the first page of Saunders' numerous listings. The categories in this Saunders Padlet list are books about gender, LGBTQ main characters, trans representation, challenging gender stereotypes, then different types of families. The last two columns provide additional homosexualist and gender bender promotions under teacher resources and pop culture. Saunders and Country Club principal Christy Glazer have even presented a teacher seminar on what they call queering the classroom. To illustrate the twisted weirdness of their recommended storytime books, listen for a moment to a teacher recorded elsewhere as she reads from the pernicious Saunders recommended book, Who Are You?
For some people, the grown-ups guess right about their body and their gender. This is called cisgender, when someone's identity matches their sex assigned at birth. And for some people, there are more than just two choices. There are just a few words people use. Trans, genderqueer, non-binary, gender fluid, transgender, gender neutral, agender, neutrosis, bigender, third gender, two-spirit. And there are even more words people are using to describe their experience. This is called the gender spectrum.
Rational people call this madness insanity, since captive audience young children, including kindergartners, are outrageously its target. So if your kids are coming home confused, wondering if they're boys or girls, or if they're in the wrong body, and you wish to discover the cause of such turmoil, parents, check into what their teachers are presenting. SRV activist teachers mislead vulnerable, impressionable youngsters with the full approval of district administrators.
Our next speaker is Robert Clemente.
All right, I got 3 minutes. Okay. So I want to first start by saying my thanks to all the kids that came up earlier today, all the groups that have represented SRVUSD. They do it in a great job. I'm going to segue a little bit real quick, and I'm going to make this real fast. I used to call myself an LGBTQ ally. I'm going to say I'm not an ally. I'm going to say I'm a member. I am a cis male, Filipino, person of color teacher here at SRVUSD. And so I just kind of want to give my support to the community. Next, I want to say thank you to all of you for your vision and your action when it came to starting our ethnic studies program. It is something that has made a difference in our kids and in how they see themselves. One of my students, Leslie Williams Jones, came up here and talked about his transformative change in how he sees himself and empowering himself. He is trying to get into HBCU, and he's right now waitlisted at Morehouse, and I hope Morehouse sees this video so they know that they're going to be missing out if they don't accept him. The other thing I just want to say to Dr. Malloy, I really appreciated what you said in saying that we should meet them in their space, right? We can do the things that we can do in our space, but we should meet them in their space. So I am formally inviting all of you to our second symposium. It is April 19th. Our symposium is May 19th. You have a whole month to clear your calendar. It is starting at 9 o'clock and it ends at 3. Our goal is to have conversations, have moments of empowerment and meetings all day. We would greatly appreciate your presence there. We are giving you a lunch. You paid for it, so you might as well enjoy it. So this is one of those moments in history where you have an opportunity to make a huge change in the lives of all our ethnic studies students. Again, your vision and your action were great, but they were great yesterday. What we're looking for is tomorrow. And on May 19th, we're dealing with tomorrow, right? And it is very important that our kids of color, our communities, see the power brokers hand in hand, knee deep in the mud with them as they have conversations about systematic racism, systemic racism, and empowerment. So again, I formally invite you. It is May 19th. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Roberto, thank you. My next speaker is Ronnie Saboja. I'm sorry. Okay.
Hello, my name is Ronnie. I'm a student at Monte Vista, and I'll first say I'm so glad I got to go after some of these presentations. I have a lot to say. First of all, my pronouns are he, him. I do think that saying pronouns before speaking is showing so much support and clarification too. I love it so much. And I want to speak with my own personal experience as a trans student at the school. And I want to say that like when we talk about like mental health and how much it matters, we're also talking about like LGBTQ students. Like a lot of talking about statistics about trans people in general, specifically trans youth, half of trans males end up committing suicide, and a third of trans women, trans youth, within trans youth, end up also committing suicide. So when we want to talk about taking this representation out of our schools, what are we doing? Are we wanting to further the statistic? Do we not care about the students that have suicidal thoughts? Like what do we care about? our own personal beliefs, our opinions, or lives of students. What matters? It takes a lot for me to stand here and just try to talk about my own existence. I think it's not fair that I have to stand up here and talk about my own existence, and why I decide to why I want to live equally among my students and have equal representation, because representation matters so much. And I don't understand when people talk about bringing up how this agenda within schools can, as if, turn students gay, as if watching straight media can turn them straight. I've watched straight media my entire life and I'm not that. So does not work. I don't understand. And when I come up here and talk about this, I care about lives. I care about mental health. You know, I don't want any more students to have to go through what I went through. It's such bigotry at specifically even at my school. With the gender support plan, when I figured that that exists, I was so appreciative of that. And I love that so much. One thing I do have to say about that is when I wanted to try to change my gender at school, I found out about it at the end of the year. And I had to go around asking because my counselor didn't know what I was supposed to do. But to leave it off, trans youth and trans mental health and LGBTQ mental health matters because we're saving lives. Thank you.
Ronnie, thank you very much for being here. Next speaker, Sabina Vinca. Okay, that's fine. And last speaker I have is Matt Hoffman.
It's a little bit unlike myself that I'm a bit disorganized this morning, or this evening, I'm sorry. I don't talk about it much, but I, for years, volunteered in the Stockton Unified School District, and the tragedy that happened at Stagg High School this morning, where a 15-year-old there was stabbed to death, it affected me greatly. So I'm a bit distracted about that. I want to thank everyone who came out here to talk about the mental health issues that are going on in this district. They're more pronounced, I think, than this board understands. And I've been talking about it since November last year. I came up and I talked to this board specifically about violence and violent distractions inside of the classroom. And that and in that meeting, we had a whole agenda item. We talked about strategies for mitigating this, things going forward. It's been 6 months. And we have to ask ourselves, have things gotten better? Things gotten worse? What have we done, and what kind of metrics are we as a district and we as a community supposed to look at to judge our success as a community on supporting students, whether they be older high school students like we have right here, or the elementary school students that we talked about who are in need of support in abundance. We talked about having these counselors, and I am greatly appreciative of the counselor support that we've had at our schools. What's interesting is that what we don't know, or most of the community doesn't know about, is a lot of these counselors are paid for not by necessarily this board or by tax dollars or everything, but by donations from parents. And that if some schools in the past, they didn't get enough donations, you didn't get those support counselors, you didn't get that rainbow room, you didn't get those other things that you could get or that we were talking about that are so critical for supporting students, especially at the elementary school level. Right away, we have people talking about full caseloads. There needs to be more. There needs to be more support. How can these? It's a breakdown of every strategic direction you have up there. It's a breakdown of equity. It's a breakdown of social emotional support, of shared responsibility. All of it. And I look forward to understanding what we can do to make things better, because what is going on at the elementary school level is what the community is learning is that bullies win. It's not that we have a zero tolerance policy against bullies here at this district. We have a zero tolerance policy against victims. The recourse of a bully that's going out and constantly, maybe on a daily basis, attacking or assaulting another student, there's no problem. If the parent doesn't have a problem with it, it keeps going on. Where the solution is for the victim to leave, for the victim to pick up everything and go somewhere else to escape from their bullying. I'm out of time, but real quick, thank you, Cindy, for calling me. I did appreciate that. It wasn't her thing to pick up. It was your guys's.
Moving on to item 9.6, Association President's Report. Tammy?
Believe me, my speech isn't this long. It's okay. I'm Tammy Casluccio, president of the California School Employees Association. I'd like to start out saying that I'm looking forward to participating in Advocacy Day this Friday for the first time. So I'm very excited about that. And I also want to share tonight about what is happening in our child nutrition department. We currently have 87 child nutrition employees working at our 35 sites, including our central kitchen. We currently have roughly 41 vacancies in the department. We currently have 18 positions posted, as Zeta is trying to hire at the sites with the most need, and we are prioritizing hiring as to not distract from the positions that are absolutely needed. The first year of the pandemic, our child nutrition employees and department pivoted more than any other staff in the district. They started having to serve grab-and-go meals and produce boxes for all children in our district. Students who received those meals did not even need to be a student within our district. They served lunches throughout the summer to ensure that children had meals. The second year of the pandemic, they continued to serve grab and go. The drastic change in their working conditions has created exhaustion, injury, and employees to rethink whether or not they want to continue in this field. We have child nutrition employees that have worked in this district in their positions at their sites for over 20 years. Their dedication to making sure our children are fed every day goes unnoticed. They, unlike other employees, did not get the opportunity to work from home. And I want the board, district management, and the community to know that these employees are truly unsung heroes. The beginning of this year brought us again a new director, Zeta Riker. From our first meetings, Zeta and I agreed that we wanted to build a working relationship with collaboration and regular check-ins, which has been happening. It's been another challenging year. This year brought the California legislature making the decision for universal meals. We all know and agree that feeding our students is the most important. Their eating habits and nutrition affect their educational experience. Zeta and her team have had again to pivot to serving prepackaged meals, as that's the only way that we would be able to feed all of the students that wanted to eat. The child nutrition staff again has had to adjust to a new normal. With the additional heavy lifting and reorganizing how food was served, they stepped up to the plate and continue to be unsung heroes. A few weeks ago, Zeta presented to the board her 3-year plan for the child nutrition department, and eventually the goal for all sites is to go to a scratch cooking model. Currently, we are piloting scratch cooking at Doherty Valley High School 1 day a week. Our hope and data is telling us that scratch cooking is the most effective way to go. It will help reduce our food costs as well as help with the supply shortage. We realize for some it is concerning that we are so short-staffed and have so many vacancies that we should be prioritizing that. And let me say that Zeta, the Child Nutrition Department, and HR have been working really hard to fill those positions. At our last negotiation meeting on February 25th, Zeta presented some recommendations for some changes, for some salary changes and creating new job descriptions for the department, rather than hold up the reopener process that we were finished with at that time. And knowing that there was still work that needed to be done, we decided to come together, work together to get all the salary stuff ready, all the job descriptions, correctly updated. And we are currently working through that process to increase all salaries of all of our child nutrition positions. She's created a new cook job description and has changed titles for the CN positions that to be more enticing. Once again, once negotiations are finalized, ratified, and the board has taken action, she's planning to create video and some other marketing tools for us to fill those positions. Hiring and filling vacancies is a huge issue statewide in all CN departments. The plan that Zeta has created will take 3 years to fully implement, and we both realize that for the plan to work, we need to have our sites be fully staffed. Zeta has brought in a new POS system that the staff is currently being trained on to give us more accurate number of our meal counts and to be able to keep track of students receiving food. The state has also implemented serving breakfast as well, which has created other challenges. Um, the challenges have not been met without roadblocks. The answer to the roadblocks is continuing to find viable solutions not only for our department but also for our employees. Zeta has done multiple forums with students to hear what they want to see in school lunches, as well as had staff forums to discuss all of the changes and challenges and receive feedback. We know that the child nutrition budget in normal times has always encroached on the general fund budget. As Zeta said in her presentation, the state will be giving us less money starting next year per meal. She is very budget conscious and is working with Danny to have a solvent budget. There will be a carryover from this year to help carry us through. Once universal meals goes away, we need our program to be engaging and participation needs to be up. We are working through all of these challenges and concerns with positive solutions. I need the board, district staff, students, and community to realize the hardships that the CN department have been engaged in and are still working through, but are doing it collaboratively and in partnership. I have spoken with this child nutrition staff, hearing their concerns and struggles. I've shared those with Zeta, and she's making decisions and changes based on their feedback. I am encouraging the board, district staff, students, and community members that when you are on school campuses, visiting, volunteering, or students learning, that you take a moment to thank the employees in the child nutrition department. If it were not for them, our students would not have been fed and will not continue to eat. Please remember to acknowledge the staff at all of our school sites when you're doing visits and interacting with them. Thank you.
Tammy, thank you so much for your presentation. Let me just say, I really appreciate your focus on our nutrition staff and truly believe that I think I speak for the whole board. We do acknowledge and appreciate what they've gone through throughout the pandemic. You know, the being out there, you know, particularly in the early lockdowns, being out there handing out food as people would drive by, and then switching again once we went into class, you know, back to class and everything else. So I truly do hope that they recognize how much we appreciate and continue to work on the staffing shortage issues, as well as, you know, the other things that Zed has brought forward in her plan. So thank you for highlighting it.
Good evening. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this area, the Ohlone, and take a moment to honor these ancestral grounds and celebrate the resilience and strength that all Indigenous people have shown worldwide. My name is Laura Finco. I'm the president of the nearly 1,700 non-managerial credentialed personnel here in the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. Last board meeting, I announced that Corby Saunders was nominated for the El Costa Service Center Human Rights Award. Tonight, I proudly share that Corby has been officially awarded this honor. Absolutely. I would like to share with you a little bit of Corby this evening. Corby Saunders is a true warrior for our students, especially those representing the global majority and those in the LGBTQ+ communities. They have been a trailblazer in the San Ramon Valley Unified School District as a seasoned educator and dedicated advocate, lighting a fire for our students, teachers, and administrators by raising our social justice awareness and ensuring we all have access to an education prioritizing equity, inclusion, and awareness. As one of the SRVUSD co-chairs for our LGBTQ committee, Corby conceived and created the PRISM program in our elementary schools. The PRISM Club accepts students in 4th and 5th grades into an inclusive club, allowing the opportunities for socializing and providing a platform for discussion on topics focusing on our LGBTQ communities. Despite controversy attempting to thwart the success of our PRISM clubs, Corby has persisted and have our clubs, knowing that all of our students deserve a safe place. Corby's willingness to mentor and educate is continuous. Corby presented at the CTA Human Rights Conference on how to jumpstart a GSA in our elementary schools. Corby has also presented for NEA on how to affirm LGBTQ identities in our classroom, and no, not as some would like to share, Corby has not presented any presentations on queering the classroom. That was a panel that was done for one of the presentations that she was part of, but it was not her presentation. It was a panel. Corby recently took on the additional task as a CTA cadre trainer. Their conviction and enthusiasm are contagious, and we all benefit greatly with Corby's passion, expertise, experience, and amazing skill set. And I want to thank you, Corby, because I hope you're watching this evening, and congratulate you on this well-deserved recognition. There are those who would prefer that advocates like Corby were silenced. But just as this year's National Teacher of the Year honoree Kurt Russell of Ohio expressed, all students deserve the holistic opportunity to learn and to see themselves in the curriculum. They deserve to be their authentic self. Now, when I was in 5th grade, we were given an assignment to write an essay about someone we were inspired by, and I chose George Washington Carver. When I went to our school library to research my hero, the clerk asked me if I wouldn't prefer someone who was a little bit more like me. Now, I'm not sure what she meant, if it was because George Washington Carver was a black man, or maybe it was because he was gay, or maybe it was the fact that he was a peanut farmer. But as it turned out, as an adult, I do actually identify with at least one of those. Yes, I did write about him, and I got an A. Having heroes we identify with, aspire to be, is part of growing up. Knowing Sally Ride was not only the first American woman in space, but the first LGBTQ astronaut should not diminish her accomplishments. Caitlyn Jenner's accomplishments as an Olympian should not be tainted. We should not ignore the contributions of those in the LGBTQ community to science, sport, art, and not mention the political world, nor should we force our LGBTQ students back into silence. They deserve their voice. They have earned their voice by standing on the shoulders of those who have come before them, and they are setting forth a pathway for those who will come after them, and they will come. Now, speaking of our students, this evening we will be jointly sunshining contract articles for the negotiations of our 2022-2025 successor agreement. Because Servia members are so focused on ensuring our students receive the best educational opportunities possible, we are moving forward articles that will give our kids the best class sizes, the best supports, and the best educators. We want to improve class sizes and caseloads to achieve optimal educator to student ratios, providing our students with the support and resources they need to thrive. We want to secure manageable class size, caseloads, and workloads to be able to provide all students with increased individual attention. We believe that SRVUSD must retain and recruit the best educators for our students. Therefore, we do seek competitive compensation to attract and retain high sought-after educators who are qualified to address the diverse and unique needs of the students they serve in this district. And we would like to establish the best practices in incorporating the dynamic use of technology throughout our students' educational experience to provide the best supports. We appreciate the labor management partnership and reach out to our community to assure them that we are committed to your children, our students. We believe in their value, their authentic selves, and we will continue to advocate for their intellectual growth along with their social, emotional safety. And as I started off my words this evening, acknowledging and honoring those that came before us, I do want to end my words this evening by honoring and remembering one of our own, Brian Jennings from Monte Vista High School, who passed away last week after a very valiant but short battle with cancer. Brian was a true advocate, loved his students loved him. He is sorely missed, and our hearts go out to those who were touched by him, by his students, and those who love him. Also in our CTA community, last week, ironically on the same day that we lost Brian, we also lost one of our board of directors, Jerry Eaton. Jerry was also a very strong advocate for public schools and a lifelong learner. Both of these gentlemen lived by example for us all, and we have much that we can learn by remembering and recognizing what they've shared with us and our students. Thank you.
Laura, thank you so much for your comments. One thing that I'll add just real quick, you're talking about Corby Saunders. Last evening, the San Ramon Valley Education Foundation had their annual Night of the Stars, and Corby was one of the shining stars from that event as well. And I want to congratulate her and all the others who are a combination of parents, community members, and staff who give so graciously of their time and support to our school district. Item 9.7, our student board members report. Run it.
Thank you. First, I wanted to thank all of the students for coming out today, especially the ones that are still here, just echoing the notion of previous speakers. But it was really good to hear from some familiar faces, other unfamiliar faces, whom I hope to connect with over the coming weeks and 6 weeks that I have left of school. Yes, I am counting the days till graduation. But given that we had spring break, there hasn't been too much school since we last spoke. However, as I was speaking to earlier, around this time of the year, it's when students really get into a flow. So the sentiment of students across the board remains widely the same. And I'll apologize in advance, but today my report might be a little bit long. So having served in this role for almost 10 months now, I've started to realize, and I have realized that there are two main different types of issues that students face. First is troubles adapting and adjusting to new norms, whether this is a new norm at the start of the school year or whether it's a sudden shift during the school year. And I'll get into some examples of that as we go on. The second, more importantly, actually, is troubles that dig deeper than that and actually have to do with the base and status quo environment surrounding them. So at the start of the year, we saw more issues relating to adapting and adjusting to new norms. We saw issues with Schoology, child nutrition, and especially, obviously, coming back onto campus with the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, on a day-to-day basis, in today's time, they're largely unheard of. Adapting to a new normal was a process for many. However, understanding that we can't put all of our problems on the fact that something was new was also important. So we addressed some issues within Schoology. It's still not perfect, but we're getting better at it. We removed our mask mandate once it was safe and legal to do so, and it's been going great across the entire district, with students able to comfortably choose as they please whether they want to wear their mask or not and not be judged for what they choose to do. And apart from that, we've been working to update our school lunches, as Tammy mentioned earlier, to meet the wants and needs of our student body, making sure that they are able to go to school, have a 30 to 40-minute lunch period, depending on whatever schedule they have for the day, and they can get something that meets their dietary restrictions, something they like, and really just be comfortable with that setting. There's been a group of students that have been hard at work with district staff and other community members in that group. And actually tomorrow, I believe they are having their third meeting. And they've been doing workshops, as Zeta mentioned last time during our meeting, just in order to sort of reform that plan and really improve it going forward. Apart from that, students generally face stress and mental health issues, as we know and have heard of, with balancing their schedules, facing social pressures, trying to make friends, and often just trying to fit in. So the effects of this are often seen in their grades and in their behavior. Grades are more prevalent towards the time when it's due for progress checks for the quarter or towards the end of the year. But even with day-to-day tests, this is something that really becomes pronounced just with basic stresses that we see across campus. So it's important to understand where everyone is coming from and what's going on in their lives before we start jumping to conclusions. So even though sometimes it may seem as if somebody is just complaining about a test, which is the next day, and sure, sometimes you do have to suck it up, go there and just do the best that you can. There's a lot of other things that are also going on behind the scenes often, and it's important that in order to foster this sense of community and understanding among our students, that we conduct events like we have been doing in the past, like breaking down the walls, or like affinity groups, for example, that really allow people on campus to get together and understand that maybe there's something in the news that is affecting a certain racial group. Maybe that there are certain things going on campus which people feel uncomfortable about and that are distracting them, which when they're trying to do an assignment in class or they're trying to work with other people in the group project, they're just really not able to give it their all because there's something else. So I think that we've been moving in the right direction and that we should continue to do such events more often. We could have shorter events during sometimes like lunch, student support and access periods, which we've began to implement across the high school level, and which are there in some middle schools as well. And we really just want to be able to get to know each other as students, and so much more. So at the high school level, even in younger grades, sometimes there isn't as much time available to meet people that you wouldn't traditionally interact with and just get to know them for who they are. Sure, we work with them for some assignments and get sat next to them with assigned seating charts, but when it comes to time for lunch, games, recess in elementary school, or just being able to sit with whoever you want in the classroom, we generally tend to congregate with those that we already know. So being able to go beyond that, whether you're an introvert, extrovert, or somewhere in between, it would be good for people to just have a time where they can really just meet one another. And sure, sometimes it seems like I'd actually talked to Dr. Malloy about this, that people are just disrupting the class because they're talking while the teacher's talking, or they're not necessarily paying attention. But oftentimes we see that at the freshman, the sixth grade, and other more adaptive levels where students are trying to fit in more and to meet people in their grade, to make some friends, and to really just kind of find their place in who they are in the social strata of their entire school. So while this problem exists within the social sphere of things, mental health issues obviously come from academic roots as well. I think that teaching our students to balance their schedules, manage time, and take care of themselves is just as important as learning how to take a derivative or to do basic algebra. In the past, I remember my sophomore year particularly, we were given sheets by our English teachers to understand how much time commitment is involved in each class that we were thinking about taking for next year, thinking about the responsibilities that we may have, whether that's sports, extracurriculars, other sorts of team events. So organizing it and then understanding what is manageable and then really keeping time aside for ourselves as well, just to relax and having that buffer period between different activities, or to just meet with our friends, spend time with family or anything like that. So I think that working with our planners as well was another pivotal step, which we had in the ninth grade level. But also just being able to meet with counselors surrounding some of these topics is also very beneficial. So I think that it's important that we do more of the same, being able to increase student and counselor interaction, whether that means just something like a general quarterly check-in, or finding a way to make it more casual and common for people to talk through their academic and social experiences within their school atmosphere. That can really greatly benefit everybody, just for teachers, district staff, and counselors to get a better understanding of what a common student faces, but also for students to just have someone to talk to through those issues, because sometimes it's hard to just reach out to a friend, no matter how close you are, because it feels like you're admitting a problem or it's awkward to bring up in a certain context. Finally, I think it's important for us, as we've discussed with the deep learning initiatives, to see the meaning in our learning in order to apply it and really just work in tandem with the strategic directions that we've set out to accomplish. This could mean having more discussions in classrooms and activities which really engage students and have them work with one another. It could also mean just being shown the applications of our learnings to the outside world. And we should work to understand how students can become more engaged in the classroom so they aren't just zoning out, as sometimes they tend to do when they get bored. But I really think that we need to take away focus of students going to the classroom to get a grade, and we've talked about this several times, that people are often working towards what gets them the grade rather than what gets them to learn the topic at hand, or to enrich themselves within that classroom setting. And with more interaction within the classroom rather than being spoken to or simply given asynchronous assignments, as we've had sometimes over the pandemic, especially. Um, I think it'll be more beneficial to stray away from those, um, and really being able to just apply our learnings with assignments in that sense and discussions. But with that in mind, every movement comes in steps, and I think that it's clear that our work is headed in the right direction. We have been listening to our students more often. We've been giving them more transparency, whether that is through email communication, increasing student voice, as we saw tonight, and with this position and with multiple other facets of communication with the district and the student body, or even making the Instagram account, which has been pretty recent. But just shout out to at students SRVUSD. You can drop a follow there to convey our messaging through social media, because that is how students often receive their forms of information. Um, it's actually pretty common for students to just go and scroll through their feed, and see a lot of reposts from other students, from more established accounts, just to get the information spread more rapidly. And that could allow students to gain more information on, like we talked about earlier, Schoology, or like we've talked about at previous board meetings, something like Securely or Child Nutrition, or anything else like applications are open to join a certain subcommittee or to apply for the Student Senate, or there's meetings for the GSA, BSU, any of these other sorts of affinity groups. So getting out the word through social media and through any other platform, where I think I was talking to Ms. Samuels that we're talking about getting a page on the website as well, just to echo the messaging on there, just in case somebody doesn't have a certain form of social media. So I think that that is definitely a step in the right direction. Apart from a more general gauge of the student body, I've been busy with some other events as well. I am also going to be attending PTA Advocacy Day this Friday, where the theme is the base. I attended the affinity group lunch at Monte Vista today, where we discussed the Day of Silence coming up this Friday. And yesterday at the Student Senate, we discussed a variety of topics, including the implementation and modification of the care line posters, also known previously as the anonymous tip line, um, across various school campuses. And we also went over the district presentation of equity, talked about diverse hiring practices, and also about restorative practices within the disciplinary process. So besides that, I would like to thank you for your time, and I'm opening the floor to answering any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ron. You know, in your comments, it made me think back to our framework for excellence. It's kind of foundation for our strategic directions, and particularly the 3 R's. And the 3 R's that we spoke about in that framework were rigor, which gets into deep learning and the academic aspect of it. But the other two that you focused a lot on, relevancy and making sure that we continue to remain focused on making sure that our education is relevant. And the third, and just as important, is relationships. And I understand, particularly in teenage years, how focused that is. So it's probably something for us to continue to keep in mind, how those 3 aspects do create a basis for what we're trying to accomplish for our students. So anyone else have any comments they'd like to make? Okay, Flor.
I just want to say thank you for all of the deep work that you did. I think that just, looking at, I felt like with this report, you looked at, really thought about the year and all the information that you brought and learned, and then kind of distilled it down to these specific pieces that we can take and move forward in the coming years once you're off and finished with school and going on and being the awesome person that you are and growing. So thank you for the year and for that report, because it was really insightful. Thank you.
Moving on now to item 9.8, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Malloy.
Thank you, President Mintz. And student trustee Boutra's not finished yet. He's got a few more meetings before that graduation date. You know, there are clear expectations that we fulfill to ensure that we are measuring outcomes. And sometimes when we're measuring outcomes, people think about numbers. But I have to admit, as I reflect on this meeting tonight, and I'm going off anything that I prepared, I'm just needing to respond in the moment, that this is a perfect example tonight of our strategic directions in explicit action. It may not have numbers attached to it. Yes, we'll have to measure in different ways, but we've heard a couple of things. Our students are the focus. We've heard it all night. And you just gave the best speech on our strategic directions that I've heard, including I've tried to say, and I say that with sincerity. The student focus that we are engaged in, we're taking to the next level, because what we've been working on underneath our strategic directions is, what do we hope? What do we plan? What do we expect for our students to graduate from us? We're calling it the profile of the learner in SRVUSD. And it's not something new. You've heard it, but we're really trying to focus it. Critical thinkers, creative designers, effective communicators, insightful collaborators, global citizens, and empowered learners. And we're going to explain all of that as time goes on. But the reason why we're working on a system level draft of this, it's all draft like everything we do, so we can go out with it, see what people think. High schools are starting first just to engage this conversation, and we'll adjust as needed, but we needed a systemic starting place. And we saw great examples tonight of everything that our district, through our strategic directions, is saying about our students. And we are grateful that you're here but tonight, but also for all 30,000 of our students. The other thing I really want to underline, shared leadership was in action tonight, not just with our students, which is explicitly a part of the plan, but we heard about our amazing educators who are involved in all aspects of the work, our union colleagues who provide leadership. Like, that is an explicit commitment. And once again, we didn't have to bring any data into the room except the voices and experiences of our wonderful, wonderful staff. And I'm not using that term wonderful just to be positive for no reason. It's because of the extensive work that goes on. We've heard a lot about mental health tonight, and I do want to clarify that, and I'm grateful, Ronit, that you suggested this with Advocacy Day this week. Our limited budget pays for our counselors and our mental health supports, not anyplace else. And unfortunately, our one-time funds, which end soon, pay for a good portion of those supports. And we want to continue those supports. And those supports will struggle to continue unless the base is raised. So I truly believe that we've got the personnel who can help kids. We can support mental health effectively. We can improve kids' lives, but we can't do it without human resources. And that can't happen without funds. So we will continue to focus our work and to support our students and to support our staff, because mental health, social emotional well-being is our priority amongst the others that we all know about. And we have to figure out a way to move this whole discussion forward so that our supports can increase. But truthfully, we can't do it just because we want to. We have to have the resources. And that is something that I trust you as our board members will continue to advocate for. I also feel the need to, if you will just indulge me for my last comment, because sometimes in this boardroom, we hear about educators who may not be doing what they're supposed to be doing. Tonight, we heard about two of our educators from Country Club, Christy Glazer and Corby Saunders. And I'm going to read right from the FAIR Act, and I need your indulgence. When adopting instructional materials for the use in schools, governing boards shall include only instructional materials which in their determination accurately portray the cultural and racial diversity of our society including the contributions of both men and women in all types of roles, professional, vocational, and executive, the role and contributions of Native Americans, African Americans, Mexican Americans, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, European Americans, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Americans, persons with disabilities, and members of other ethnic and cultural groups to the total development of California and the United States. Our educators must do this. This is not just something they do. It is a requirement. Now, we will continue to engage our parents so that they understand what it is we're doing, how it is we're doing it, and why. And we need our parents to be partners with us in this. We've always said that. But I need to be very clear that this is an expectation. And it's one that, as we sometimes hear, shouldn't be done, it actually must be done. So I close by saying we are moving forward. It's never perfect, but there are so many things to celebrate while we continue to do the very significant and challenging work for our students. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Moving on now to item 10.0, our action items. Finally, at 9:14, we've got some action items to go through. 10.1, it's a public hearing for the joint initial proposal for labor negotiations between the San Ramon Valley Unified School District and the San Ramon Valley Education Association for the 2022-2025 successor agreement. This is a public hearing. I'm going to open a public hearing. I have no cards for this, so I'm going to close the public hearing. We'll now move on to item 10.2, which is consideration of acceptance of the joint initial proposal for labor negotiations between the San Ramon Valley Unified School District and the San Ramon Valley Education Association for the 2022-2025 successor agreement. Mr. Roginski.
Thank you, President Mintz. Pardon me. So the current collective bargaining agreement between the San Ramon Valley Education Association and the school district will sunset on June 30th of this year. So that means that it's time to lay the foundation for and do the preparatory work to begin to negotiate a new 3-year successor agreement for the period 2022 to 2025. We all know that the government code requires that before any initiation of negotiations in the public sector between labor unions and employers, the initial proposals must first be sunshined to the public and opportunities for comment be made. Tonight, we are submitting a joint initial proposal. The articles that are intended to be reopened have been discussed jointly with SRVUSD and included on the joint proposal document that's attached to this item. A number of those items were highlighted by President Laura Finko when she came up and spoke about it during President's comments earlier. I think that it's important for the board to take note tonight that the district and the association are not bringing separate proposals for negotiations forward. We're bringing one joint proposal. This is the first time in a number of years that SRVUSD and the district have jointly sunshined for the negotiations process. I want the board to be aware that it was SRVUSD who came to the district and proposed that we jointly sunshine for negotiations. And when they brought that suggestion to us, we were thrilled to agree with them to do so. We believe that tonight's joint sunshine is both a symbolic and a positive reflection of how we are evolving and constantly improving over time in our ability to communicate, work together, and problem solve as labor and management partners. We also believe that it reflects our commitment to collaborating to address and support the needs of students, certificated staff, and the school district. So we very proudly bring forward tonight's initial sunshine proposal for a new 3-year agreement and ask that the board accept it. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Our public hearing on this was item 10.1. This is item 10.2. I have a speaker card. I'm not quite sure I can accept it, though, because we've already closed the public hearing on this item. Okay, I'm sorry. So I bring it to the board for discussion. Any discussion? I have a motion.
I move approval.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member Ordway and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Roll call vote.
Student Board Member Bacha.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Item 10.3, consideration of adoption of resolution number 70/2122 in the matter of notifying certain classified employees of the decision to not reemploy or to reduce their hours for the 2022-23 school year. Mr. Regenski.
Thank you. So the board will recall that on February 22nd, it adopted resolution number 63, and that identified the specific services provided by classified employees of the district that we needed to reduce for the 22-23 school year due to a lack of work or lack of funds. As you'll recall, under AB 438, the process for altering classified services changed this year relative to what it's been in the past. And it is now aligned with the certificated process, and it becomes a two-step process. So what we're asking the board tonight is to approve resolution number 70. Once the board takes action to approve that resolution, we will provide final notice to the one individual whose position is being reduced, and that's the individual whose name is included in attachment A. If the board is wondering what happened with those other services that were being reduced, one of probably the only benefit that is associated with having vacant positions is that when certain positions are being eliminated, rather than actually laying those individuals off or reducing those hours, you can place them in available vacant positions. So most of the employees who are going to be impacted through this process have been made whole through that process. Right. So it's recommendation to please approve resolution number 70 as presented tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Regenski. And so my understanding is what we're talking about in this item is a reduction only of a 0.225 FTE. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I will share with you that this happens to be an employee who works as an autism specialist para. And these are the hours that are associated with that individual's accompanying the student to and from school on the bus. The student has moved. And so that service is no longer needed.
Okay, thank you. I do have a speaker card on this item specifically. Ms. Sancountry.
Correction, I didn't put Miss Secountry. It is Taiwan Secountry. So I'm wondering, first of all, why is it that I couldn't speak to 10.2? I think that was a violation of the Brown Act. But for 10.3, I'm wondering, what is the Human Resources Department taking action in ruling or making sure that our school district doesn't hire teachers that have been from other districts and who have already been prosecuted or cited for child molestation. There is one recently in the news.
Excuse me, Mr. Country, we're specifically to the 0.225 FTE reduction of one employee on this item.
Well, if you would allow me to speak to other items.
No, you can only speak to this particular item at this time.
Okay.
Do you have anything else you want to add about this particular
I do.
item?
So according to what Mr. Wojcinski just said, the personnel is reduced because the student has moved away. However, you don't know if there's going to be other autistic students that are going to move in next year. So then if we do have other students who move in, now you have reduced this teachers, and I'm assuming you're keeping all the good teachers and you won't let me speak to all the teachers, from other districts. Okay, so anyways, so I hope you guys will address why you're reducing, not anticipating that, that is a common need. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from board members? If not, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Bratt and seconded by Board Member Clark. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Bacha.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Item 10.4 is consideration of approval of revision to Administrative Regulation 1312.3, Uniform Complaint Procedure. Again, Mr. Ujinsky.
Thank you. So the board will recall that on October 26th, it approved revisions to the board policy and administrative regulation 1312.3 on uniform complaint procedures. Those revisions brought us into compliance with statute at the time. Since then, we have learned that we are going to be participating in a FPM, Federal Program Monitoring process this spring. And one of the programs that the FPM will look at and evaluate is how we are implementing uniform complaint procedures. In the process of submitting information to date in preparation for the review, we received some initial feedback on our newly revised administrative regulation, indicating that a few additional changes needed to be made in order to essentially pass muster in this review process. So we are asking that the board take action tonight to approve the changes that are included in the attached administrative regulation. They are minor in nature, and they will help to make sure that we have no issues with regards to our board policy or administrative regulation for uniform complaint procedures in the review process. I do want to share with the board, and I think that I just want to acknowledge, we understand that this process is normally a two-step process. And the only reason that we're diverging from that this time is because everything for the program monitoring process is due to the state by this either Friday or Saturday. And we learned about this we got this feedback from the reviewer subsequent to our last board meeting. So this is really our one and only opportunity to get this right before we submit it to the state at the end of this week. Okay.
Thank you,
So,
Keith. Comments from board members. I do have one card on this item from Miss Country.
It's Taiwan country. I didn't put Miss country. Thank you. So I would like a clarifying answer if this uniform complaint procedure also include our international employees. I don't think they include that. And as a parent, I feel like the district is always sort of ignoring parental concerns about safety, security. I understand you're trying to hire according to political agendas, which is fine. I'm not against anyone. However, as a parent, I think you have the fiduciary duty to make sure you hire people who are not former criminals.
So excuse me for a second.
Yes.
This has to do with the uniform complaint process
Of employees.
specifically. So if you have a question, comment specific to that, not about,
But in the report, it doesn't even
it's not
include
about our
who.
hiring practices. It's specifically about this policy in question right now. So if you have anything you want to add about that, we'd be more than happy to hear it.
The policy includes your practice, which includes, execution. And I'm asking about your execution.
Of uniform complaints
Yes,
specifically.
if that includes international employees.
And staff can answer that question.
yes, so any individual who chooses to bring forward a complaint, whether it's a community member, a student, or a staff member, this policy would apply to that individual as a complainant. So I hope that that's an answer to the question.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from board members? Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
Second. Motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Clark. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Bacha.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Brat.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Item 10.5, consideration of approval of declaration of need for fully qualified educators. Once again, Mr. Ujinsky.
All right, last but not least, right? So each year, the district, every school district, is required to file what is called a declaration of need for fully qualified educators. And what it essentially requires or allows us to do is it requires us to forecast what classifications of certificated employees we may need to hire under some kind of emergency credential, whether it's a short-term staff permit, a provisional intern permit, a limited assignment authorization. There's a number of them. This is basically a forecast. No school district is allowed to hire any certificated employer under any of those permits with having one of these approved first at the Board of Education level and then on file with the County Office of Education. So this is our forecast for a declaration of need for the 22-23 school year, and we're asking the board to take action to approve it tonight so that we can submit it to the county and to the California Department of Education.
Thank you. Questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, kind of motion.
Make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Student roll call vote. Student Board Member Bacha.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Item 12.0, administrative matters, board member reports. Who'd like to start?
Yeah, I can start really quick. Spring break. There wasn't too many going on, but I know that we all enjoyed the evening celebrating our volunteers and our teachers and staff and different individuals who really contributed at the school site level last night at the Education Foundation's night with the stars. It was great. Dr. Malloy and I attended a meeting with the city of San Ramon officials just to kind of, and Danny, yeah, was there too, Mr. Holman. And just, we met just to kind of give reports to each other, to, you know, because we collaborate with the city pretty closely with several different projects. And then one more thing, again, promoting for our Advocacy Day, PTA Advocacy Day. It's this Friday. Please register if you haven't. It's going to be really interesting with our speakers and panels, not only legislators, but talking about raising the base, but also, yeah, community members, students, educators, everyone who really want to explain why raising the base and adding to increasing our base funding is going to be very important to everyone, not only the schools, districts, students, but really community too. So that's it for me.
Yeah, I'll second that. I've been working for the last month and a half on Advocacy Day, and this is probably one of the most important advocacy days that we could have as far as our school district is concerned. Because when we see what we want to do and where we are, we can't do that, as Dr. Malloy said, without resources. So getting this information out into the community, we're going to need everybody's support to try to get the base raised, so that we can continue to deliver the services to our students that they deserve. I've been doing some LCFF presentations associated with raising the base at individual PTAs, and I was at Tassajara Hills, and I was so impressed with their PTA and the turnout that we had for that meeting. Really active parent community and very supportive, so I wanted to thank them. I also attended the council PTA meeting, which I hadn't done since I was a PTA president, and it was really nice. It felt like coming home. Lisa invited me, and I was really happy to be able to see everybody. I also visited, and I know Laura did too, and I'm sure some of our other board members, the Vocational Career Day at San Ramon Valley High School, and it was phenomenal. I went around and talked to every trade and learned all kinds of new things about what's available out there to our students. And it was really great to see so many of the trades represented and lots of other different careers that our students may not know about that are available to them. So I'm so happy to see that in our district for the first time, and I hope that we can continue it. I also completed a site visit at Creekside Elementary, which I've now completed visits to all of my schools, which I'm happy about. And that is a great campus and a beautiful school. And the principal there is amazing. And I also enjoyed our night out last night. Got to dress up and be around other people in a group and having fun at the Night of the Stars, celebrating all of our great staff and volunteers that make this district what it is. So that's it for me.
Yeah, with the vocational and education fair, I just wanted to take a minute to thank everyone that put this on and everyone that participated. It was a great success. I too enjoyed last night's celebration. It was wonderful to celebrate all the wonderful volunteers, staff, and administration that were celebrated last night. So, and then we've mentioned today we have the Day of Silence on Friday, and I just wanted to kind of say that, you know, we spend a lot of time as adults, we spend a lot of time debating other people's rights. And in this room, we spend a lot of time debating students' rights. And when we talk about and debate about LGBTQ plus students' rights, we talk about whether they deserve to have a safe place to go to the bathroom and to change into their PE clothes, whether they're allowed to have books in their classroom and in the library that tell their stories, whether they're whether we should respect their pronouns and their names, whether we should value and whether we should educate about their health care. And I think that when we do that, when we have those debates, we silence them, those students, we marginalize them, we other them. And I would like for us to take the Day of Silence as an opportunity for us to pause and to reflect on that silence and for us to really hear them in their silence. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. That was perfect. A lot of redundancy here because I think we all travel in the same circles, so I don't want to repeat everything. But I do want to add one more thing about the vocational fair. That event has been like a dream for me ever since I joined the school board. My very first time at the CSBA conference, it was in San Diego. I walked into the trade hall and there were the representatives from the trades. And I went over and talked to them because I knew my oldest child was probably going to need to go in that direction, which he has and has been very successful. But I remember asking them about, this is great. Do you come to school districts? And they said, yes, we do all the time. Where are you from? And I told them, they said, oh, we know about you. You're not interested in us. And I've talked to them every year when I go to that trade hall. Susanna's been there with me. We built toolboxes together. So it was just amazing to see them all there, to talk to all of them. I thanked every one of them for being there, and their response was, thank you for inviting us. They need young people to go into those fields. And some of our young people are dying to know about those fields. And so it's really win-win. And I just want to thank the CAC, which Laura and I are both liaisons to, but it was the members of that committee that made that day happen and did all the researching of how do we reach all those people. So I think it was a real success for our students, for our staff, and for the people in industry that need to employ people to do work that we all need. So just salutations for that. Last night was wonderful. It was so great to celebrate the breadth of volunteers we have. It was so great how every school honored people who did different kinds of work. Looking forward to Advocacy Day, and thank you, Susanna and Shelley, for your deep dive in the participation of making that happen. My little job is I get to make name tags on Thursday. And then the last thing is we have a CCCSBA virtual meeting on Thursday, and we have a nationwide level speaker who wrote a really important book that ties into the work that we're doing with equity. Zaretta Hammond, author of Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain. And I am delighted that all of my fellow board members are coming. Our superintendent is signed up. Some of our staff in the back is signed up. So I'm just, once again, San Ramon rocks.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, well, looking forward to that one. Also tomorrow, the Rotary Club of San Ramon is recognizing a number of our educators in luncheon And I look forward, I think, with Dr. Roy to be there. I don't know if others are going to be there. Oh, tomorrow's Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. And Friday, I'll also be at the Advocacy Day. And Laura, I also appreciate your comments. And, you know, at Advocacy Day, our voices are going to be loud about support for our students and recognizing their silence that day as well. This next week, we do have a couple of finance presentations coming up at San Ramon Valley High School, as well as at, what's the one on Tuesday is at Monte Vista. We have two coming up next week on that. I've got a Street Smarts Advisory Committee meeting, as well as we have a Danville San Ramon Liaison meeting next week as well. So got a few things coming up, and I'm sure staff is, now that we're past spring break, is getting ready for an exciting end of the school year. What is it, 32 days or something? Not that anyone's counting. If there's if there's nothing else, I want to thank those of you who stuck with us through the evening. Oh, you're right, you do. It's a country, you have a card.
Okay, so let's talk about inequity here. First of all, to board member Wong Ordaway, I don't appreciate you attending the city council member as a trustee. If you go there as a citizen, that certainly is your right. And that's because the reason why I'm still wearing the mask is not because of the mandate, but because I am afraid of retaliation coming from the communist Chinese community, who won't even allow me to go by alias Taiwan, the country. Let me spell it for you. Taiwan, Tywon, Taiwan. The country, SACONTRIE.
Miss Country,
Just by
can you
putting
please
that,
focus on
I can't
the
even.
remarks of the reports only
Yes, I
at
am.
this time.
I am. So therefore, because of your prejudice against people's freedom of speech, and also I'm a conservative, I'm a Trump supporter, I have gotten actual threats who says that they are a parent of DVHS, and they deem that whenever I speak publicly, I'm a threat to the community when I'm just exercising my right. So I am very concerned about you going to city council meeting as a trustee. If you don't have that authority coming from the board, please do not exercise your influence and power of your office while you're there. You're certainly just like me when you're there as citizen. And
just to clarify, Ms. Ordway sits on a liaison board with the city of San Ramon. Her report spoke to her participation as a liaison of this board to the city of San Ramon, just to clarify.
I was at the city
Do
council
you have
meeting
anything
with all
else?
due respect.
Do you have anything else about
I
our
do. I have
reports
one
this
more thing.
evening?
Can you please treat me equitably?
I'm trying to.
No, you're not.
Please
You are the
focus.
most prejudiced person against me. You even called a meeting just to think about how to screw me, my freedom of speech, with an attorney. I
Do
am
you
so
have anything
talk
else?
about pride. I'm so proud that it's all about me, me. Thank you. So please, this is my time. You cut into my time.
Only if
I
you're
request another 20
focusing on the
seconds because you
reports.
took away from my time. I was at the city council meeting, and Ms. Wong Ordaway never said anything as a liaison in that capacity. She mentioned that she was there. I'm not sure why she was there. So I'm just, as a parent, I don't appreciate that I'm already being threatened and that the president won't even say that the alias that I put on the paper. Taiwan, it's a country. It's not even political. It is simply a spelling. Taiwan, it's a country. Okay. Have you ever watched the Barbie movie? People play with sounds all the time. It's part of intellectual. I hope you will teach my students that way instead of being cooped up in political restriction. Also, to the LGBT community, I hope you will not silence yourself. I certainly appreciate your individuality. It is very sad that you're silencing yourself. Thank you.
And with that, our meeting is adjourned.